Two things. For a section of Ghanaians, things are vastly improved. Whilst the other section, the group you would want to call the opposition syndrome, when I listen to my brother Richard struggle so much to, make a case for the cocoa sector and the issues that confronts us both locally and globally. You must appreciate that things just don't work within, but sometimes without. So opposition syndrome means that you must oppose a lot of things, even when they are good. Sometimes you still must oppose. But I think that Ghanaians have moved past that era. You should be constructive in the criticism. You should be able to offer an alternative. And when you listen to some of the things that the opposition profess as alternatives, you realize that it is bereft of deeper thinking. You were right in asking whether indeed the energy sector is doing any better under the current government. My response would be a yes. Right from the power sector to petroleum, there's been a vast array of interventions and improvements led by the Honorable John Jinapor.
They said there's doom, so yesterday there was mentioned in Parliament.
You see, Sanda, I can Google a lot of articles on the state of the Ghanaian power sector not long ago. I can Google a lot for you. Before the coming into office of the current government, you recall IPPs were up in arms over debts owed them. There came a point Sunan Asogli had to shut. People thought it was for politicking. But the truth is, if a power producer has input variables and output, right, and puts in so much, and you don't pay for what, he's generating, you are simply running them aground. And so there was a time we couldn't even pay for what the IPPs were putting up. And that was leading to a lot of legacy debts. What I can confirm today is that moving ECG's generation from 1.1 billion, 900 million monthly to about 1.6, 1.7 billion alone has made the power sector a lot liquid. And a lot of the IPPs you recall recently are sure that they have been paid a substantial amount of the legacy debts. You may still find pockets of lights off here and there, doomso here and there. If you listen to the Energy Ministry spokesperson, he says that these are localized faults that engineers have had to track and trace and deal with. And so it leaves you with a sense of hope.
But the cost of the electricity is what people
Sanda, I'll come there. On that I agree with the opposition. Right? On fuel, there's been a lot of savings to Ghanaians. In fact, our numbers would indicate that anytime you do a 1 pesewa reduction or increase, the incidence of it totaling is about 4 million Ghana cedis, 1 pesewa. So anytime it's a 10 pesewa difference, that's 40 million. Anytime you do a 1 Ghana difference, either positively or negatively, that's about 400 million Ghana cedis. Over the past 13, 14 months of this new administration, fuel prices have averaged around 12. We've come to the 10s, we've come to the 11. Now, before the current government took office, you were doing about 14.9, almost 15, right? If you do the average variance of savings to Ghanaians month on month, you are doing over 1.13 billion in savings just because of the 2 Ghana difference arising out of the difference in what used to pertain and what is today. Ghanaians are simply pocketing about 1.13 billion every single month, in savings on fuel. However, on power.
So Ghanaians are benefiting on the petrol side of things?
Yes, a lot.
Ordinary Ghanaians?
Everybody.
Every Ghanaian?
From industries that every Ghanaian living within the country that consumes fuel, yes. There's some savings that we all make on what we could have spent if fuel were where they were. And then you say this because the microeconomic indicators seem to be positive, where you have not only the exchange rate being good, but again, the cost push factors. Some of the taxes have, been taken off. You have a situation where there's even oversupply at present that has led to the price wars you have. And so on the petroleum side,
it's good.
Significant savings in the pockets of Ghanaians. If you do the 13, 14 months at 1.1 something, you're almost at 13, 14 billion Ghana cedis that Ghanaians would have spent on fuel.
I think I pay less than 100 cedis what I used to fill my car tank
so
with
if
now.
Each week you save 100, that's 400 to you alone.
A month.
Yes, so
that's
if we put all of us together, at the end of the month, that's a lot of savings.
So that's on petroleum.
On petroleum. Power. On power, however, a lot need to be done. Ghanaians are spending so much on power. In fact, if you go on socials now, the complaint is that, look, you buy 1,000 and what could have taken you for a month is now taking you for 2 weeks. Yet, when PURC announces, an upward adjustment, they are usually in the 2%, 5%, at most 13%. We've never seen 50% or 100%. But if people on a normative, side are spending 100% of what they spent on power, something needs fixing there. And for that, I would challenge my brother John Amaoh to get to work.
What did they say that balance the losses in the power with the gains in the petroleum side? Would that be a reasonable?
No, that wouldn't be. Sander, you see, you would be assuming unfairly that everybody that buys fuel is also consuming power one way or the other. You may be buying fuel, your wife may be buying fuel, right? You may be paying for power, she may not be paying for power, right? So she may get the benefit, but you would suffer the consequence of paying for power. Okay. So you may need to tweak and adjust the power sector challenges. One of it is the cost. And I'm sure Ghanaians would agree across the spectrum, both opposition and in government, that cost of power is still very high. So something got to be done. And for that reason, I was happy when, in the course of the week, Ghana Gas took a couple of CSOs, on tour to go and see their facility, what they are doing, why a train 2, if we got one, would be good enough for the country. Sander, the history of this country is this. Once upon a time, you had West African gas pipeline, right? That determined whether you had power or not, you recall. We soon forgotten, yes. You'll be here, you are told we owe the Nigerians some 20, 30 million, $40 million. So they've turned off the valve, right? Until the coming on stream of Ghana Gas, this was our situation. We had to rely on an external supply. And so if you owe them and they were not satisfied with your promises, they turned off the valve and you slept in darkness. Now, Ghana Gas has been here 8 years, 10 years almost. It seemed to have fixed a certain problem, right, of predictability in the power sector. We are running on a single train now. When it has to shut down for maintenance, we are off. If the volumes that is required by VRA and Gridco, right, you don't get enough from Ghana Gas to meet those demands, there's a problem. And so 8, 10 years down the line, it is imperative that Ghana refocuses some resources to develop a train 2. Sander.
Where train 2 is a two-way pipe?
Well, a second of what you have, a second gas processor, a second, distribution set, so that if for any reason at all you are not getting enough to feed your thermal plants, you can have a backup somewhere. But we are running on a single train now, and I don't think that it helps. If you are having to discuss energy security matters, I was hoping the president would touch on these matters yesterday, but that didn't happen. We will still draw his attention to it. The state of Ghana today is that you would need to plan, particularly for the energy sector, because it's also a driver, right, of all the other sectors. Whether inflation will decline or it will go up, your fuel and power cost would inform it largely. I'll not be surprised when Ghana Statistical Service comes out another time to tell you what are the drivers of your inflationary pressures, the food, non-food baskets. The energy sector, particularly power, will be one of the critical areas you would find that Ghanaian workers are spending more and more of their incomes, right, just trying to keep their power, on. And
so when it comes to the State of the Nation address on power and petroleum, what's your scorecard?
Petroleum, you would say that,
or let me say the energy sector. What's your scorecard?
The energy sector largely, yes.
State of the Nation.
Energy sector largely, I would score this government about 65-70%. Largely because the challenges you had in the power sector, right? The ECG challenges that would probably lead to procurement issues. You recall when they took power containers that we were just simply procuring. Nobody has been held to account though, but I think that that system has been largely dealt with. ECG at the time was running about 73 different accounts. As we speak, they are running just 1 or 2 maximum. So cash waterfall mechanism is able to work. What they generate can be able to use to pay for, what they source or secure or buy from the IPPs. That is a positive. Unfortunately, the cost of power is a headache and a burden to Ghanaians. And I think that whilst we give the plaudits for Mr. President for having done quite well on the economic front, there are still challenges, both systemic and structural, that we will need to deal with. And for which reason, I think if opposition wants to help all of us, they should add their voices to the cost of power, not just, cocoa. Cocoa, truthfully, has gone down the world market. The government seems to have taken, a heavy bullet, by, going down on prices. But you cannot blame them entirely. As we speak, Sanda, a quick one. The United States, Israel, against Iran. There is every indication on the wall that the world may be getting to higher energy costs in the coming weeks or months. So Ghana would need to plan and prepare for this. You saw the writings on the wall long ago when Trump started. So I was not surprised Franklin kept using, the very hard language. That stupidly there's been some attacks. Iran, as we speak, is retaliating, right? The Straits of Hormuz, where 1/4 of all global oil supplies would have to go through, is currently, under threat. And that will mean that the West is not going to get the oil they need, the energy that they need. And so you, as a country that, takes from the West and everybody, you may have to prepare and brace yourself for impact.
As the elephants fight.
Yes, the ground will definitely suffer. So there's something state of nation.
I'll come